7.5, Writing and Graphing Inequalities. Our objective for today is that I can write and graph inequalities and use them to solve real-world problems. What is an inequality? An inequality is a statement that shows that two quantities that are not equal to each other. For example, 3 is greater than 1. Remember, a greater than sign does not look like an L. A less than sign does look like an L. 5 is less than 9. Y is greater than 11, or W is less than 7. Each of these statements are true statements, but they are not equations, or they do not have equal signs. They are inequalities because they are using inequality symbols, not equal signs. So what are words or phrases that we might see in real-world problems that would indicate that we would use an inequality? You might see the words less than, fewer than, less than or equal to, at most, no more than, greater than, more than, exceeds, greater than or equal to, at least, or no less than. So what symbols would we use to represent each of these phrases or words? If we see the words or phrases less than or fewer than, you would use a less than symbol that looks like an L. If I was to see the phrase less than or equal to, at most, or no more than, you would use a less than or equal to sign, meaning that it could be equal to that number or less than that number. If you see the phrase greater than, more than, or exceeds, you would use the greater than symbol, meaning that your value must be greater than, okay, or bigger than. If you see the phrase greater than or equal to, at least, or no less than, you would use a greater than or equal to symbol, signaling that that value could be equal to or more than. How would we graph each of these symbols for a given value? Well, if we were to make a number line, and if we wanted to graph on a number line, let's say we wanted to graph something that was on 0. If we wanted to graph something that was less than 0, then we would make sure that on our number line, we would put an open circle on the 0. And if it is less than 0, for example, x is less than 0, then we would have an open circle on 0, and we would have an arrow that goes to the left, like this, signaling that it is less than 0. If we wanted to show something that was less than or equal to 0, again, on my number line, here is 0. If it's less than or equal to, because it has that line underneath the less than symbol, I'm going to fill in my dot on the 0 and then make an arrow signaling that it is less than. So the dot tells me that it's equal to, less than or equal to, and the arrow signals that it's either greater than or less than. Less than goes to the left, greater than goes to the right. So with greater than, if we have x is greater than 0, again, on my number line, here is 0. If x is greater than 0 and there's no equal to symbol, I'm going to have an open circle and my arrow would go to the right, signaling that it is greater than. If I have a greater than or equal to sign, x is greater than or equal to 0, then on my graph, I would fill in my dot on 0, and my arrow would go to the right because it's greater than. if I wanted to write inequalities, I am going to be paying attention for these keywords or indicators when I write an inequality. So let's try some together. Okay, on our together side, in the United States, you must be at least 18 to vote. So here's my phrase, at least. Where do I find that? Up above. At least. At least means it is either going to be equal to or greater than 18. So I have written V for vote. Okay, you could use any variable, is greater than or equal to 18. So if you want to vote, you have to be older or equal to the age of 18. Number 2, a number W is less than 12. Where do we see less than? Right here. So we're going to use a less than sign. So W is less than 12. Remember, the less than sign looks like an L. 18 is more than the number X. Well, more than is our key phrase. So 18 is greater than X. Number 4, a number W is no more than 7. So if it can't be more than 7, then that means that it is either equal to 7 or less than 7. No more than. So less than or equal to. So I would write W is less than or equal to 7. I would like you to use your keywords up here to try to write an inequality that represents each of these next 4 statements. Do that on your own. Now let's talk about graphing inequalities. If we are going to graph an inequality, first, you're going to need to make a number line that is the appropriate size and numbers for your problem. Okay, then, if you have a less than or greater than sign, then you place an open dot on the appropriate number on the line. If you have a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to sign, then you place a filled in dot on the appropriate number on the line. If you have a less than or equal to, meaning less than or equal to, you draw an arrow from the dot going to the left, signaling on the number that the number is less than. If you have a greater than or equal to sign, then you draw an arrow from the dot going to the right, signaling that the number is greater than. I would like you to first we're going to try the next 4 together. So let's make our number line for each of these. Each of these is just going to have a short little number line. Okay, first thing we need to do is make sure that our number line is appropriate for each of our problems. Okay, this one says x is less than 4. So if I were you, I would always just put whatever number you have here in the middle. Okay, so you have 4 in the middle, but now I need to create the rest of my number line. So to the right of 4, I would have 5. To the left of 4, I would have 3. So if x is less than 4, that means that I'm going to have an open circle on the number 4 and an arrow going to the left because it's less than 4. If I have x is less than or equal to 6, so I'm going to put 6 in the middle of my number line. To the right of 6 would be 7. To the left of 6 would be 5. On the number 6, I'm going to put a filled in circle because it says less than or equal to, and an arrow that goes to the left, signaling that it is less than. If I have x is greater than -2, so -2 on my number line, to the right of -2 would be a -1. To the left of -2 would be a -3. So on -2, it says it is greater than, so I would have an open circle, and my graph would go to my arrow would go to the right, signaling that it is greater than the number -2. X is greater than or equal to a -1.5. So -1.5 maybe to the, if this has 0.5s, maybe in this graph you would count by 0.5. So to the right of -1.5 would be -1, and to the left of -1.5 would be a -2. If we wanted to keep going, okay, the next one over would be -0.5, and the next one to the left of -2 would be -2.5. So if x is greater than or equal to -1.5, I'm going to fill in my circle, and my arrow will go to the right because it's it's greater than or equal to -1.5. So now I want you to pause and try the next 4 on your own. Make sure you graph a number line, make a number line, make your numbers on your number line appropriate for the value that you are graphing, and then place your either open or closed dot on your number line with an arrow signaling the appropriate symbol of your problem. Okay, when you're finished, come and pause and come and check them with me, and then you can start your assignment.